Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have made so clear that what they believe they need the most is more warplanes and fighter jets. So why is the U.S. assessing something different? Why does the U.S. believe they know better what Ukraine needs than what Ukrainian officials are saying they need the most?
It sounds like, we're pretty dug in on our position when it comes to the no-fly zone, when it comes to the MiGs, despite this growing bipartisan call in Congress to shift a little bit. So, to put it bluntly, is Zelensky wasting his time tomorrow asking for these things?
President Zelensky is going to be speaking to Congress tomorrow. He's been pushing for fighter jets, a no-fly zone. You have to hear some of those same requests tomorrow as well. Has the administration shifted on that at all?
Australia, though, calling for a no-fly zone. They're a NATO member. They share a border with Russia. How do we view their calls for a no-fly zone?
And on President Zelensky's address tomorrow, of course, he is expected to ask for more assistance, as my colleague noted. A lot of the U.S. positions on that haven't changed, as you just said, when it comes to the no-fly zone. But on the aircraft specifically, the Pentagon said last week that Secretary Austin said they do not support the transfer of additional fighter aircraft at this time. Is that still the United States' position?
Would a strike in Poland on supplies or anything really automatically be met with a military, a forceful response, or simply a conversation amongst allies about how to respond?
There are reports that a Russian drone made its way into Polish airspace before going back to Ukraine and being shot down. Does a drone into Poland count?
Former ambassador to Ukraine, Maria Ivanovich, has been quite outspoken recently, and she said we need to mitigate risk, but it's also true that not taking greater action comes with a risk as well, because Putin is a bully and he only understands strength. Is the president showing enough strength against Putin? If Putin were to use chemical weapons, would it change the president's thinking when it comes to these MiGs, taking the no-fly zone off the table, but at least on this issue? Are you prepared? Can you give us any more details about what that threat means of severe consequences? I want to go back to the MiGs quickly and just be crystal clear about what you're saying, because when I asked the president about this earlier, he said he's not going to comment. He didn't say that it's not an option. So,
well, we've spoken to it approximately 167 times. So maybe
Well, here's 168.
Go ahead.
There's a growing number of Republicans and Democrats who are supporting the U.S. striking a deal with Poland to send the MiGs. You have Elise Stefanik earlier today saying Ukraine needs those MiGs. You have Scalise saying getting those MiGs in immediately is critical. There's a growing chorus of voices saying that now is the time. Has the president reconsidered his stance at all at this point?
No, because our military makes assessments, which they put out that assessment last week, and I would just echo that one part of the assessment is based on what equipment is effective in fighting this war, anti-armor and air defense systems. They are effectively defending the country. That is what we have provided additional assistance on. Second, they have several squadrons of mission-capable aircraft.
I don't think that's enough, Jen. You heard President
that are not being, Kristen, that are not being utilized. This is the assessment by our Defense Department. Third, they are also assessing that the transfer to Ukraine may be mistaken as escalatory. So this is how our Defense Department is assessing. They are assessing also that it would not significantly change the effectiveness of the Ukrainian Air Force. And these are the types of risk assessments we certainly understand. We share the passion, the anger, the horror at what we're seeing. And that is why we significantly increase the types of military assistance, the types of equipment that we know is effective, and our Defense Department Department is determined is effective in fighting this war.
Have noted from the podium that Putin has shown no signs of changing course. You've also noted that there are significant consequences that Putin could still face, even with this additional aid that you're providing today. It seems there are still other options on the table. So why hold back? Why not use every tool at your disposal now to spare additional lives?
Well, I think if you look at the range of tools that we've used to date, we have implemented more economic sanctions than we have on any other economy in the world. You could compare it potentially to Iran or maybe North Korea, but Russia is a much more significant economy, a larger economy. And so I wouldn't say that we are holding back in that sense. We do have additional steps we can take, as we've talked about a bit in here before. Obviously, the SWIFT banking system and the implementation of those sanctions happens institution by institution. There are additional individuals that can be sanctioned. We can have new targets. We can deepen the severity of sanctions on existing targets. We can further eject Russia from the international economic order. We can further deny Russia the capacity to modernize and diversify its economy, like we have with the export controls and the cutting off of access to a lot of technology. And we can further expose and hold to account the kleptocracy. These are additional actions we have, additional options we have, and we can take them, and that is a decision that we would make through a discussion internally.
But what are you waiting for?
But go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. You put out a list of all of the military equipment included in that $800 million that's being provided to Ukraine. Among those items, let me read them to you: 100 grenade launchers, 5,000 rifles, 1,000 pistols, 400 machine guns, and 400 shotguns. Are you saying those items are not offensive weapons?
They're weapons that help the Ukrainian people fight against an invasion by a foreign
They
country.
can be used offensively, can they not?
Again, they're weapons. What I'm talking about is weapons that can be used to
The
fight.
answer is yes. I mean, although you don't want to say it, that answer to that question is yes. And so, obviously, you're trying to make this distinction between offensive.
Well, what we're
and
talking about. Let me finish.
defensive
Let me finish.
weapons. Well,
Let me
because I'm
finish.
making my
Let me
point.
finish my
You make-
answer.
No, you are no. I was finishing a point, and then you can respond to my.
Okay,
answer.
go ahead.
All right, you're making this distinction between offensive and defensive weapons. Anybody that looks at that list of weapons that I just mentioned, they would say clearly they're offensive. If a Ukrainian military officer or someone who is enlisted has one of these weapons, they can take out a Russian military official of some sort with these weapons. They're offensive in nature. So why not provide more offensive weapons like this to the Ukrainian military?